written production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.
Good morning. I call this Board of Directors meeting to order and ask that you rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our board meeting today. I am Kat Fimmel, President of the 2023 Board of Directors. This regular meeting of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Board is audio and video recorded by the RCSC management staff. Please be advised there is no recording of this meeting by any individual. Please take out your cellular phones and electronic devices and check them to ensure they are put on silent. Now I would like to introduce our timekeeper, Tracy Bussebarger. Management staff, Bill Koch, General Manager. Kevin McCurdy, Director of Finance. Mike Whiprud, Director of Building and Infrastructure. Chris Herring, Director of Operations. Brian Duthu, Director of Golf and Grounds. Mike Diermeyer, Director of Bowling. Jolynn Higgins, Communication and RCSC Marketing Coordinator. Polly Corsino, Sun City Visitor Center and Marketing Manager. Marcia Johnson, Corporate Executive Coordinator. Good morning. Teresa Serino, Director of Events and Entertainment, up in the booth. I also would like to recognize Alan Kleinhans and Carla Young, Audiovisual Engineers. I want to take a moment to welcome all RCSC members who are attending for the first time. Thank you for joining us. First item of business is the roll call of the voting members by Secretary Totten and quorum confirmation.
Thank you. President Fimmel.
Good morning.
Vice President McAdam.
Good morning.
Treasurer Fast.
Good morning.
Director Lanevsky.
Here.
Director Lair.
Here.
Director Nichols.
Here.
Director Nowakowski.
Good morning.
Director Collins.
Good morning, everyone.
Secretary Totten is here. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Secretary Totten. The first order of business is approval of the minutes. The minutes of the January 26, 2023 meeting were posted for the director's review. Are there any corrections, additions to the minutes? If there are no corrections or additions to the minutes will be taken as written. Next is the Treasurer's report. Are there any questions on the Treasurer's report?
I move to have the minutes accepted as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objection? The treasurer's minutes will be reported and filed for audit. Management report. Are there any questions or comments on the management report? Vice President McAdams.
Yes, so I do have a question for management under the operations, specifically with the $4,000 maintenance project for the infield. So it says the annual maintenance laser leveled the infield and added hilltop or dirt material for a smooth plain surface that requires less water and prevents dust clouds when dragging. Are you aware of any concerns or complaints about this maintenance?
Sorry, President Fimmel, Director McAdam, Board. I'm not aware of specifically related to that material. There have been some concerns regarding runoff of the field of that material in the rain. But other than that, I've not had a negative feedback regarding that material.
Okay, thank you.
Any other items with regard to the management report? Then the management report will be accepted if there is no objection. Are there any committee reports? Director Collins.
On the golf advisory, they are going to, management has come up with a plan starting in March where they're going to do straight sheets rather than split sheets, and that just do a test to see if that will alleviate some of the pressure on residents not being able to get their tee times. So everyone needs to keep track in March when you apply for a tee time. If you get it, great. If you don't, please write it down so at the end of the month we can hear from everyone how many you got or didn't get for the month to see if the test works. Thank you.
President Fimmel?
Yes, Treasurer Bass.
The Long-Range Planning Committee has taken on the task of creating the framework for a 5-year strategic plan to be presented to the board for recommendation. They have changed their meeting schedule from once a month to twice a month, and so are fully committed and hit the ground running. The Finance and Budget Committee has taken on the responsibility of examining reserve policies as it was committed to the board to determine what reserve policy should be recommended, and that would be working in collaboration with management. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Fass. Any other committee reports? We will move on to the Recreation Center update given by General Manager Cook.
Thank you, Madam President, Board of Directors. Alan, do we have the, okay. So we'll go through this. It actually it will be online. So the year-to-date income of $2.3 million was unfavorable to budget by about $75,000. Golf was driving that due to the weather. You guys have all seen the weather in January was not great relative to prior year, but our operating expenses made up for that with a $365,000 favorability with lower wages and then lower software maintenance. So our net operating excess was $763,000, so we did have an excess, $294,000 favorable to budget. IT processed 105 service requests in January, and HR filled 11 job requests. For building infrastructure, 477 work orders were completed, which is larger than normal. Normally, we're in the 300s. So a lot of work being done in January. The Mountain View Center, we spent $211,000 to date. We're looking to still break ground in April of 2024. We recently held a meeting with our construction manager, Alston, and CCBG, our architect, to kick off, what the future will hold in terms of meetings and such. Very successful. Next steps are to complete the schematic design. Continuing with building and infrastructure, so the Sun Bowl softball field, we spent $24,000 of the $1 million budget. We expect the construction to start Q2 of 2023 with early Q4 2023 completion. So we recently finished the drawing set, and it was reviewed with the club and operations and CCBG. So I know we received some feedback on that, and I know that the architect is incorporating that. We recently, we're going to complete then the architectural and civil designs, submit the plans to the county, and then gather proposals for security and video, and then update the drawings based on the club response. Viewpoint Lake, so $1.7 million has been sent so far of the $8 million. As everybody has seen, it has been raining, and it continues to rain, and it looks like it will continue to rain. So that has delayed the sediment removal. And we, as stated before, recently discovered that we had more sediment at the bottom of the lake, as there is a layer of soil that covered the current liner. And so we actually pulled together a plan to mitigate that, to get rid of that soil, and still do it within budget. So we're very happy to announce that even though we've increased the amount of soil, we should still remain in budget. Sediment removal will start next week. Best Friends Dog Club. So the Dog Club did not approve our recommended interim solution as the sizing was not big enough, and therefore we're going to continue to determine a space. They did give us their requirements. I believe their expectation is about 10,000 square feet. So we will continue to take a look at that and then try and develop a quote and put that in the next PIF budget. Clay Club. So there's timing with respect to that is related to ordering of some of the electrical equipment, but we've removed a wall that was dividing the space, so that's been well received. We ordered the kilns, and then we're going to finalize the construction contract, so we expect to be complete by Q4. Quilters Club, if you've been over there, it looks great. We're pretty close. We should be fairly close to, I think we're at the point where we can do the punch list there and then finalize moving in. Golf, year-to-date income of $900K was $44,000 unfavorable to budget. Again, inclement weather driving that. Operating expenses of $460,000 was favorable by $57,000, so they offset their unfavorable income. An operating excess of $371 is $57K favorable. January total rounds was $35,899. Bowling continues to really do very well. Income of $109,000 was favorable by $18,000. Their lineage year-to-date was 34,291 lines. Operations, so the dirt and maintenance, which we've discussed, was completed with the laser leveling. Pickleball club hours were extended at the request of some of the membership in the club. So we have additional 3 hours during the weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m. that were added. And then 92% of the club trade name filings with the Arizona Secretary of State have been complete. Finally, the events and entertainment, 3 sundial concerts performed in January, 4 remain in February, 5 in March. The Discover Sun City event was held successfully. And just a reminder to everybody, the Italian Festival is coming up March 11th and March 12th. I encourage everybody to go online so that you can get the discounted pricing on the tickets and enjoy the festival. Any questions, contact the Events and Entertainment Group. Thank you.
Treasurer Fest, did you have a comment?
Yes. I just have a request. On the Quilters Club, which is next to the Vintage Vehicle Club, the tables are single 2x4 unsupported legs, and I just ask that you look to see if maybe put a little extra reinforcing. I just don't want to see people, after leaning on them for a couple of years, see them loosen up.
Those tables are, I don't know if you've been in there, but if you try and lift those tables, they're pretty solidly built, but Treasurer Fast, we will take a look at that.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Secretary Todd.
I know you said to ask Events and Entertainment, but because we have a large audience with the Italian Festival, is there any other way beside online that people can get the...
So you can go into Events and Entertainment, and they can order those tickets for you, or on the day of, you can buy them at the gate, but they're going to be a little bit more expensive.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other comments from the directors? Treasurer Fast.
I don't know how many of you went to the Motown concert. It rocked. Thanks.
Anyone else? Thank you, General Manager Cook. We'll move on to new business. We have 6 motions before us today. Before we turn to these motions, I want to say that we'll be following Robert's Rules of Order and standard parliamentary procedures today. So we'll begin with motion 1, Treasurer Fast.
Motions. Okay, it says, I move that the 2023 budget detail approved by the board be posted in its entirety on the RCSC website within 10 days of passing this motion.
They're not hearing you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I move that the 2023 budget detail approved by the board be posted in its entirety on the RCSC website within 10 days of passing this motion. I would like to speak and explain that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Secretary Totten. Treasurer Fast, you may proceed.
Okay. I'm of the opinion that the only thing rarer than a sighting of Bigfoot is a secret in Sun City. I think we, all of us, botched the assessment increase horribly by appearing to bury it in the budget. Lesson learned. We only compound that by keeping the details of the budget for spending the members' money from the members. So I say put whatever is shared with the board on the website like other communities do, and that's what this motion does. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, please read the names of cardholders who have signed up to speak on this first motion.
When I read your name, please come up to the podium and state your name, member number, and most importantly, whether speaking for or against the motion. Each speaker will have 3 minutes for comments as indicated by the light on the stage. The first person would be Patrick Gannon.
The motion before you is to have the 2023 budget detail that has been approved by the board posted in its entirety on the RCSC website.
My name is Patrick Gannon, member number 150056, and I speak in support of this motion simply because it informs the members and anyone else that's interested. It's been my experience that there will likely be fewer questions if more information is available. It's as simple as that. That's my support. Thank you.
The next person's Dave Whalen.
Dave Whelan, 17077. I'm against the motion because I don't believe there'll be a big membership stampede to read the budget. I believe that a good percentage of the people in Sun City do not know how to read a budget and analyze it. I think this is just something, it's change for the sake of change. And that's it.
Madam President, everybody has spoken that signed up for this motion.
Thank you. There being no further member comments, I will open the floor to discussion by the directors. Hearing none, Secretary Totten, please take the roll. Vote.
Thank you. Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Nowakowski?
Yes.
Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Lenevsky?
Yes.
Director Lair?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Vote is unanimous.
The vote is unanimous. The motion is approved. We'll move to motion number 2. Treasurer Fast.
I move that the unallocated carryforwards from prior years be shown as a separate line item of cash on the RCSC balance sheet.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Treasurer Fast is maker of the motion. Do you wish to speak?
I do. There's been a lot of talk about this carryover, and, in my experience, I think I know exactly what the carryover is, and it's not a nefarious amount. It is simply an accumulation of amounts from previous budgets that were not spent. In a sense, it is a savings account or a rainy day fund that some would argue is too much and some would argue is not enough. On whether it is too much or too little, I do not have an educated opinion yet, because I do not think management has a good enough handle on the future costs to run this enormous aging complex. This is just my opinion. And I can tell you that the Finance and Budget Committee is working hard to correct that deficiency. In the meantime, I would suggest that we just put out whatever the carryover was from the prior year that's not being spent in the current year as a separate line item. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, please read the names of cardholders who have signed to speak to the motion.
When I read your name, please come up to the podium and state your name, member number, and most importantly, whether you're speaking for or against the motion. Each speaker will have 3 minutes for comments as indicated by the light on the stage. The first person would be Patrick Gannon.
Patrick Gannon, member number 150056. I speak in support of this motion. I think, as was alluded to by Director Fast, this is one-time money that was accumulated over time. And in my training for public accounting, we were always, it was emphasized that when something is unique, you want to point it out and separate it out so that it's not confusing to those reading the financial statements who might think, oh, this is all ready cash that's coming from some operating situation where it's going to be renewed and move forward. So I think in that it's going to be more helpful for both members to understand and for board members to deal with, to know that this is one-time money that may or may not, as Director Fast said, be enough or too much or whatever. That still remains to be determined. But I think by separating it out, it draws attention to it appropriately. Thank you.
Dave Whalen.
Dave Whelan, 17077. I'm about to cause certain heart attacks to members of the board and some of the members, in that I support the motion. And thank you, John. I've only been fighting for this for over 12 years. I've been told, and I've called it the Brigadoon money. It just appears when it's needed. Then it moved to the Prego money on the financial statement. It's in there. Where? And I've always wanted it broken out because there's operational funds and there's the carry forward, and it's good for the members to know which, even on the current statement, and nothing wrong with it, it just says cash in bank. Okay, what's what? So thank you, John, and I hope this motion passes.
Madam President, everyone spoke who signed up to speak on this motion.
Thank you. There being no further member comments, I will open the floor to director discussion of this motion. Director Lenevsky.
I just have a couple questions for either the general manager or finance. There, now you broke. I just have a couple questions for either the general manager or the finance director. Do we show anywhere where the excess is? What's called carry forward?
Carry forward, yeah. That's disclosed every month on the treasurer's report.
Okay, is there any downside to this motion?
The downside, as I see it, is that I'm required under Article 12 of the bylaws to keep the financials under GAAP. This, to me, is not a GAAP number. This is a management number. It is a calculated number based on how much money we have in our checking account, less any approved but unspent capital expenditures that are in the budget. So it is not a separate account. It is not a separate bank account that I would show a balance in the balance sheet for. It's a calculated number that's intended to inform the board and the members what unrestricted cash we have available that is referred to as a carry forward, but it is not, according to GAAP, a legitimate balance sheet item, in my opinion.
Well, keeping it in GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles, correct? Could you, in the spirit of this, if they have that in, could you put on one of the bank accounts in parentheses, this includes carry forward without breaking GAAP?
I would just remind people that that is in the treasurer's report every month, and that number changes every month. It's not a static number. But I would prefer to continue to disclose that on the treasurer's report.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
The motion doesn't seek to have the number that changed on the financial statements. It seeks to have the amount from the prior year that has not been allocated to capital projects disclosed. I would expect that that wouldn't change over the year, and what accounts you show on the financial statements is not a GAAP question in my mind.
Respectfully disagree.
Respectfully disagree.
The issue there is if I show the previous year's carry forward balance going forward, I'm also going to show how it's changed in the current year so that you can calculate an accurate carry forward balance. Again, we're starting down a slippery slope of how many additional lines of non-bank account information am I showing on my balance sheet rather than showing an up-to-date by month carry forward balance on the treasurer's report.
And I would agree with you, except for the fact that the amount that's shown on the treasurer's report is an estimate, because you don't know if you're going to go over or under budget on future projects. And so this is a static number that we know will not change until it's budgeted.
And again, the issue with previous year, we know, for example, in 2023, we budgeted to take money from carry forward. So if I'm showing previous year's carry forward balance, I'm overestimating what truly is available in carry forward funds.
I would disagree with you because the motion says the unallocated carry forward, and that portion that you've allocated to capital projects would be subtracted from that number.
The budget or the actual?
The budget.
Which is how we calculate carry forward now, is I look at the budgeted, unspent capital items in the budget and subtract those from our checking account balance.
I guess I'm not quite connecting with you, but so you come up to the year end. You know what you're spent and what you haven't spent, what's left over, what's in an amount that isn't in projected revenue and operating funds. You construct a budget. That budget says we're going to either not touch the carry forward or we're going to tap the carry forward from last year by a given amount. You're given approval to tap the carry forward by the board. The other amount, which has not been allocated, is my understanding is you do not have approval to spend that money. Was that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And all I'm asking is that that amount that you don't have approval to spend be segregated from and stated on the financial statements.
I would suggest that we carry this to the auditors and ask, because quite frankly, I don't see how this would work. Okay. Because as an example, in 2022, in the budget, we budgeted to tap carry forward by $1 million. We actually added to the carry forward in 2022. So if we're just looking at what we started the year with in carry forward, you've vastly underestimated what that true balance is over the course of the year. By truing this up on a monthly basis, I'm giving you a much more accurate picture of where we stand with that carry forward. If I put where we were at the end of the last year, you're not getting an accurate view of where we are. That's why I would prefer to continue to update it each month and present that on the treasurer's report.
Okay. Your comments are duly noted.
Okay.
May I comment?
Secretary Totten.
Director McCurdy, did I hear you say that you budgeted for carry forward in this year?
We budgeted to take from carry forward.
To take from?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, that's it. No, that was it.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a statement that I'm all for anything on a line item. I love line items. It helps clear up mystery, as does showing what you have. There's more doubt when it's not shown. Thank you.
General Manager Cook.
Madam President, Treasurer Fast, so Kevin, you can correct me if I am wrong, but when we do balance sheet reconciliations, it would be difficult to reconcile back to that number, because when we do reconciliations, we reconcile back to the bank statement, which is our cash balance. That cash balance on the bank statement doesn't have a line item in there to carry forward, so I don't know that the reconciliations would be something that would be difficult and then present to the auditors, but any thoughts?
Again, it wouldn't even be on the reconciliation.
Right. Well, if it's a line item on our balance sheet, though, we would have to reconcile to it.
We would have to reconcile it to the auditor.
Correct. Right.
Treasurer Fast. Director Nowakowski.
I think Mr. McCurdy answered my question, but when we show that in our reconciliations, we do subtract out the capital projects from this year and current years. So wouldn't the balance number be what we have left in that account? I don't understand. In there, we show a starting, we take out the capital improvements, and the bottom line would end up being that number, wouldn't it?
Yeah, again, the calculation is just the current checking account balance less unspent budgeted capital project items. So as we spend money on capital projects, that number is changing. And then as that checking account balance is changing, which it does every day, that number changes as well.
Follow-up question would be then, would we have to have a separate line item now for unspent capital improvement projects that we now take out of there? Will we have to have a separate line item for those to show them differently?
Depends on the level of detail you want to see. But again, that's really not a proper way of presenting a balance sheet, is having unspent capital project items on the balance sheet. So that's why I'm struggling to kind of comply with Article 12 and present in a way that's being requested here. That's why I would rather show that as a management item on the treasurer's report.
Thank you.
Director Lenevsky.
I just have a question for Director Fast.
Yes, sir.
Would you be opposed to pulling this and putting it on next month so the auditors could look at your motion and see if it creates a problem?
I would suggest a compromise.
I'm open.
Okay. Would you include a footnote on the balance sheet that says this was the carryover balance as of last year that has not been allocated to capital projects?
Sure.
I would like to amend I would like to make a friendly amendment to my motion. That friendly amendment would be that from whatever, I have to look at the motion now. The current motion says, I move that the unallocated carry forward from prior years be shown as a separate line item of cash on the RCSC balance sheet. I would strike the words separate line item of cash and insert as a footnote on the RCSC balance sheet. Would that be acceptable to you?
Treasurer Fast, yeah, that's fine. One question, do you want to continue to see the updated balance each month?
I don't want you to have to change your process.
Okay.
Just, yep.
Treasurer Fast, could you do that again so I can
Certainly.
slowly?
Okay, so the motion would read, I move that the unallocated carry forward from prior years be shown as a footnote. So we're striking separate line item of cash on the RCSC balance sheet.
So the motion is being amended to, I move that the unallocated carry forward for prior years be shown as a footnote in the RCSC balance sheet. Is that correct?
Yes, that's.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Director Lenevsky. Do we need further discussion? All right. Secretary Totten, will you please call the roll call vote? Is there?
This is the roll
Just
call
on
vote.
the amendment, yes. Thank you.
Vice President Collins? I'm sorry.
Yes.
This is an old sheet. Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
Director Lair?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
Director Lenevsky?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Director Nolikowski?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The friendly amendment passes.
Thank you. The amended motion, the amendment is passed to the motion. Now we will make the amended motion, which reads, I move that the unallocated carry forward from prior years be shown as a footnote on the RCSC balance sheet. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Vice President McGowan.
Yeah, so I think that the layman's concern about this is that this carry forward has the appearance of being, for lack of a better word, sort of a slush fund that we go to, that we allocate money for capital projects. And if we go over, well, then we just tap into our carry forward. If we don't, then our carry forward increases. And I guess, there's a couple of multiple concerns that would be twinned with that. One of them being that, allegedly, carry forward funds cannot be spent without the approval of the board. And secondly, what other items do we have that when they're put in the budget, so items beyond capital projects, where we just say, well, if we go over, we go under, we have this mysterious amount of money sitting there that we can just tap into. So I think that's the concern that we have. It has that appearance. Is there something that we can do to eliminate the appearance that this is just a slush fund that can be tapped into at will, depending on whether we stay within budget or go over budget for our capital projects?
Director McAdam, I think that the controls that are in place regarding actual spending versus budget for operating expenses would show any specific line items that we were getting significantly over budget. As you said, management does not have the authorization to just spend carry forward funds if we choose to do that. If, for example, a capital project went over budget, we would have to go to the bid commission with a revised bid proposal and request approval for that overage. So I think that there are a lot of guardrails, a lot of control over what happens if a particular line item or a particular project spending exceeded budget. That would have to go to the board for further approval on that. So no, we don't, as management, we don't consider that we have any authorization to spend carry forward without board approval.
Okay, but at the same time, the carry forward, so I have no problem with assigning 1.9 million of the carry forward from the previous year, for instance, as a revenue stream or available capital for the 2023 budget. My concern is simply that at the end of the year, I would expect that what's left of the carry forward minus that 1.9 doesn't change unless there has been board action to allow it to change. And yet it appears as though it does. We get notification, well, it's dropped down from 10.9 to 9.4 or whatever the numbers happen to be. And that seems so mysterious to us. We don't understand that. And I think that this motion may be addressed towards trying to create some clarity there so that it doesn't look like this money is funny money.
Yeah, and I can explain the January drop in carry forward. It's because starting in January of 2023, I'm deducting unspent budgeted 2023 capital projects from that balance, whereas in December of 2022, I was deducting unspent 2022 capital expenditures, which, because we had spent the majority of our capital budget on budgeted projects, was getting to be a fairly low number. And starting in January, I'm now saying, hey, we have to make sure that we take that checking account balance and take away the budgeted 2023 capital projects from that, because that is approved spending that I now have to account for that as of December of 2022, I didn't. So it brought that carry forward balance down, and that's why I'm saying that that balance is going to change literally every day based on where we are. So The appearance that it is a slush fund, I would just have to say that there are so many guardrails and controls in place from a budgeting and an ongoing monitoring of actuals versus budget that that is not, it's not an account. It's not a bank account that I can then just start writing checks off of. It's not an account that I'm authorized to dip into if I choose to do that. That would have to come from the board.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question, if you'll indulge me. So if we're told that the carry forward balance at the beginning of the year is X amount, and we have budgeted $1.9 million to be used in order to meet the 2023 budget, would it be appropriate for us to expect that at the end of the year, that carry forward amount consists of what X was, minus the 1.9, plus or minus any budget excess or deficit for the year?
Exactly, and that's where it gets tricky because, again, in 2022, when we did the budget, we said, okay, based on the budget and based on the capital project list, we will need to dip into carry forward by this amount to keep a balanced budget. But because our operating results were very favorable to budget, we didn't have to dip into any carry forward money. As a matter of fact, we added to carry forward. So that's where you've got three levers, right? You've got your operating results, you've got your budgeted capital projects, and you've got your actual spending against capital projects, and all of that goes into the mix to determine at a point in time what is that carry forward balance.
Treasurer Fast? No? Any other discussion? Seeing none, Secretary Totten, please take the, excuse me, Mr. General Manager Cook.
Madam President, Board of Directors. So I would also like to add to that is that, on the reporting that we provide to the board every month with respect to the capital spend over under budget, with respect to the financials as well. So I reported in my report earlier today that our excess was, I believe, $300,000 favorable to what we had budgeted. So when you look at the financials, as long as our excess is favorable, and then you're not seeing unbudgeted funds being spent against any of the capital projects that we have, I mean, that's where you would determine whether or not we're eating into the carry forward. So that reporting should provide that detail for you.
So I don't know if everyone else feels like they're satisfied by these answers. I'm not entirely satisfied because it seems to me that what we should end up with, and I guess I would ask, just rephrase this question again, is it reasonable to expect that what your carry forward is at the beginning of the year, minus anything that the board-approved budget drew down in order to meet that year's budget, that amount will stay at the end of the year, that's the amount we will have, only changed if we are favorable to budget by that amount increasing, or if we are negative towards budget to that amount decreasing?
That's correct.
It doesn't appear that that's what's happening, though. So when you look at...
I'm not sure why.
Well, I guess that's why we're asking if we can have this on a budget sheet so that it's clear to everybody that this is what happens. I mean, we are historically magnificent at performing favorable to budget, which seems as though that should mean that our carry forward is increasing every year, with the only exception being times when the board-approved budget allows for a drawdown in order to meet budget.
That's correct. Or if the board during the year operationally, like last year, allowed for the IT spend of $500,000, those items then would go against carry forward.
Exactly, but it just doesn't seem that that's what's actually happening. It doesn't seem we should be able to go and say, okay, we started with a carry forward, an excess from the prior year of this amount. And if there is board approved, a board approval to dip into that, we can imagine that happening. That's what happened with our IT projects for 2 consecutive years.
Right.
We should be able to see that happening. But I guess I'm wondering, I'm not an accountant, but isn't it proper to assume that you've got that certain amount of money and that all uses of it or drawdowns on it should be visible to us on
And it is.
some kind of a budget line?
It is visible. It's visible in the expense and revenue line items on our income statement, and it's visible through the capital spend report that we send out. So all of the capital funding, capital money that we spend is a drawdown, and then any of the income statement, either excesses or spends, are going to draw it down or raise it based on what we budgeted.
I guess I don't understand why the expenses for a capital project are a drawdown on carry forward and not just a drawdown on our budget for the year. Those monies are budgeted. They're not expected to come from the carry forward.
Because when you capitalize something, it's not shown on the income statement, it's shown on the balance sheet. So we draw down cash, and then we increase our assets, and then we depreciate that asset over time. So you have to look at, but it is a cash outlay. So if we buy a $300,000 lawnmower, then that is a cash outlay which goes against our cash balance, which is what that total cash line item on the balance sheet represents.
I guess that's the question, is whether our carry forward should be viewed in such a way as a calculated amount rather than a very real amount that exists and can only be used with board approval.
So maybe I recommend that we have a special finance and budget session where Mr. McCurdy can kind of review the math behind it, and then we can make a decision on what needs to be done. We don't have an issue with what is presented, and maybe I should just left it at that.
I'm going to move to call the question.
The question has been called. I'm sorry. Secretary Totten. Secretary Totten, please take the roll.
Thank you. Director Lanevsky?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Lear?
Yes.
Director Nowakowski?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I vote yes. 9 yeses, no, 0 noes.
The motion has passed. Treasurer Fast, motion number 3.
Thank you, President Fimmel. I move that one or more plans for using the carry forward be presented to the Finance and Budget Committee for review and recommendation by September of 2023. These plans should include the results of the committee's current work, if approved by the board, on reserved policies.
Is there a second? Director Collins. Treasurer Fast.
Okay, I'll speak to the motion. The carry forward again. Okay. In connection with the work the Finance and Budget Committee is undertaking, the committee and management should be able to present a detailed, statistically justified rationale to members for the amounts we need to have in our savings account and the fee structure we need to continue to provide or expand the level and quality of recreational facilities and opportunities to our members. This will provide a roadmap for how much of the carry forward we can use to accelerate club requests and make needed capital improvements, and how much needs to be in the bank to cover unforeseen capital repairs. That is what this motion does.
The motion before us is that one or more plans for using the carry forward be presented to the Finance and Budget Committee for review and recommendation by September 2023. Ms. Johnson, please read the names of any card holders who signed up to speak to this motion.
When I read your name, please come up to the podium and state your name, member number, and most importantly, whether you're speaking for or against the motion. Each speaker will have 3 minutes for comments as indicated by the light on the stage. The first person would be Patrick Gannon.
Patrick Gannon, member number 150056. My comment is brief. I support the motion. I think having the Finance and Budget Committee presented with one or more plans for using the carry forward would be a step of managing, the key word, the carry forward money in a strategic way. I think whenever the committees would be well served, the committee would be well served to hear a couple of different options based on management's knowledge of the field and knowledge of the needs of the members from various kinds of input. And so I think whenever there's an opportunity to think about and offer options, then both the board and the members are better served. Thank you.
Dave Whalen.
Dave Whelan, 17077. I'm neutral on this motion. I'm just going to give you my thoughts. First, are the plans to allocate all of the cash carry forward money in the current year or just a portion? Will there be a cushion remaining? Well, it just seems from comments at previous meetings, there seemed to be some members who wanted to spend all the money because it's there. I don't like that idea at all. We need a cushion. We shouldn't be spending all of this money just because we have it. And that's my views. Thank you.
Madam President, everybody spoke who signed up for this motion.
Excuse me. Madam President, I did not understand the last speaker's vote. Did I hear? Neutral. Thank you, neutral. Okay. Not vote.
There being no further member comments, I will open the floor to the director's discussion. Director Lineski.
Madam President, I have concerns about this motion. Can you hear me? Madam President, I have some concerns about this motion. One is I believe we already have a mechanism in place, which is the budgeting. So I don't think it's necessary. And the second thing is I would echo Dave Weiland's concern, is that it appears to me that this will make it far easier to spend money that we really may need in the future and spend it now. And therefore, except if those concerns are answered in the rest of the discussion, I'm going to have to vote no. But I understand why the motion's being made.
Director Lehr.
Thank you, Madam President, directors. Help me to understand how we're talking about ways to spend this money or how this should be addressed.
That's my fault, sorry.
No problems.
Patience.
Oh, wait. I'm talking as loud as I can.
Okay, now.
You just got to turn me on. I'm on?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, help me to understand. We have a discussion going on about, management, I assume, is supposed to come to the Budget and Finance Committee with plans to spend the money or make recommendations. how does this tie in with the reserve, which I thought the Finance and Budget Committee had taken on and was going to explore? Because some of the questions regarding this money, rather than just a free-for-all spend-a-thon, that we were going to look into our reserves and get a recommendation on reserves prior to moving in this direction. So help me understand that a little bit more. Thank you.
I'd be happy to. The recommendation is to take that carry forward and put it in the bucket where it's needed. That could be a reserve. It could be that it could be a maintenance project that needs to be done. Mm-hmm. It could be any one of a number of items, but it would then be designated for a purpose, and then the board could say, I'm not comfortable with the amount of reserve, or I'm not comfortable with the amount of spending, or I'm not comfortable with this. But just having this out there really is nothing more than a reserve without any guidelines on it. Please.
Madam President?
Director Lear.
Okay, so again, why aren't we talking about reserves and studying the reserves so that you can make, I mean, it seems like you're putting the cart ahead of the horse. You want a plan, which I think is already addressed in our budget. When the budget is proposed, if there's going to be shortfalls, as there was in 2023 budget, the recommendation was made by finance, directors and presented to the Finance and Budget Committee that we were going to dip into carry forward funds to balance things. So we already have that mechanism in place, but I think the real issue here is not so much that you need a plan, is I thought you were going to study the reserve. Once we know what a reserve should be, that would give us a better idea of what money should be, then we have a clear direction as to how we're going to spend it or what we're going to do with this money. So it seems a little convoluted to me.
Vice President McAdam.
So I would just like to point out that the motion that is on the floor says these plans should include the results of the committee's current work on reserve policies, so if approved by the board. So that is definitely part of the issue. It's not a convoluted thing. It's simply to say that what the Finance Committee is working on in terms of reserves should play into this. It's part of the motion.
Director Lear.
I'm just saying that I think you should get your work done first and then come forward with your results and then bring your motion forward for plans.
Treasurer Fast.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what your confusion is, but in terms of what I'm going to call quality management, your funds have a purpose. Every fund has a purpose. And that purpose is to serve the members in some way, in some form. This carry forward has no purpose. It's there to be tapped at management's discretion if the board approves it. So you can set it aside and say it's not a carry forward. It is a budget deficit reserve that can be used as, we run into problems like a sundial. And we have $8 million already set aside for that. All I'm saying is give this thing a label and take it out of the realm of, well, here's just, I think, Karen, you said funny money. I don't know that it's quite that, because I agree with Kevin, there's guardrails around it, and it's not going to get, it's not a slush fund where somebody can spend it without authorization. I'm just saying, say what you're going to use it for, and then put that as part and parcel of the reserve policy.
Director Nowakowski, did you have comment?
Yes. The motion says one or more plans, and I'm not sure who's supposed to provide those. I thought that was the purpose of the Finance and Budget Committee, to go through some of these processes and provide out something for the board to look at, whether it be through the reserve policies, whatever else we have, to go through an explanation and see why we need this. I'm not sure who's supposed to do this as of this point in time, but it appears that under the motion, the management team is supposed to present something to the Budget and Finance for review, and I'm confused. Who's doing what is my confusion. I'm not sure that, in terms of how we use the money, I think that should be going through the processes that we have. It's not a slush fund. It's not an automatic number. My problem is I don't know who does what. And if I don't know who does what, I'm not sure that I'm in favor of it. I would like to see it spelled out as who's doing what.
Treasurer Fast.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment, to say that the plans will be presented by management. And let me just speak to that for a second. For the Finance and Budget Committee to do this, we're going to have to tap management to get the information. And that's going to distract their time, and then we're going to analyze it, and they're going to say, well, no, you don't understand this, and they're going to have to educate us. So I don't see where the Finance and Budget Committee has the ability to get the data and make a timely recommendation when this data is used daily by management. So I would propose that friendly amendment.
There's an amendment on the table. I will read the motion as amended, which is to have one or more plans presented by management for using a carry forward presented to the Finance and Budget Committee for review and recommendation by 2023. Do we have any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, a second.
Second.
Seconded by, Vice President McAdam. Discussion. Seeing no further discussion, Secretary Totten, please read the roll call vote.
This is the roll call vote for the amendment.
The revised motion. No?
No.
Just the amendment. The amendment, yes, ma'am.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
Director Lear?
No.
Director Fimmel? I'm sorry. This is
Go ahead, Secretary Totten.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Lanevsky?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Director Nowakowski?
Yes.
And I vote yes. It's 8 yes, 1 no.
Okay,
The amendment passed.
The amendment has passed. I'll reread the motion again. The motion is to have one or more plans presented by management for using carry forward, presented to the Finance and Budget Committee for review and recommendation by September 2023.
These plans should include.
Oh, okay, well, let me these plans should include the results of the committee's current work. if approved by the board on reserve policies.
President,
Director Lair.
before we move to a vote on this,
Yes.
I would like to make an amendment.
Okay.
Okay? I would like to change the motion to, I move that the plans, and scratch off plans and say guidelines. Define guidelines for spending the money or addressing the money. Because, okay.
Which plan? Proceed.
It could be a thematic. I'm just saying that I would cross off plans and define the guidelines.
Is there a second?
I second it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
second
You second that.
Correct.
Secretary Totten.
I'm just asking in both places because it's in two places.
Yes.
Thank you. Are you ready for me to?
Just that. That's guidelines, I move. Oh, sorry, that guidelines for using the carry forward be presented to management. These guidelines should include.
Okay. I'll restate the motion, which is to have one or more guidelines presented. I'm sorry.
I move that the guidelines will be presented by management to the Finance and Budget Committee for review, for using carry forward will be presented to the Finance and Budget Committee for review and recommendation by September of 2023. These guidelines should include the results of the committee's current work if approved by the board on reserve policies.
That's what I was reading.
You said one or more, and I just said guidelines.
Wanted to get rid of that and change it to just guidelines.
Well, but Director Lair, that wasn't the amendment that you made. Are you now making that the amendment?
Yes.
Okay. And so I will ask now that that has been made, Mr. Linetsky, does your second carry to that?
Yes, it does.
Okay. I will now read the motion. The motion is moved to,
That guidelines.
Guidelines?
excuse me. Oh, did you read that? Please, could you read that?
Sure. So I move that guidelines for using the carry forward be presented by management to the Finance and Budget Committee for review and recommendation by September 2023. These guidelines should include the results of the committee's current work, if approved by the board, on reserve policies.
Is there further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, Secretary Totten, please take the roll call vote on the motion.
This is on the amendment to the motion.
Amendment to the motion.
Director Collins?
No.
Treasurer Fast?
No.
Director Lair?
Yes.
Director Linetsky?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
No.
Director Nowakowski?
No.
Vice President McAdam?
No.
President Fimmel?
No.
And I vote no. The amendment fails.
The amendment to the motion has failed. I will now restate the motion, which is to have one or more guidelines. No, back to plans?
We're back to plans.
Okay, I'll start again. That one or more plans be presented for using carry forward I'm sorry.
Do you want me to read?
Please.
Okay, so we're back to, I move that one or more plans for using the carry forward be presented by management to the Finance and Budget Committee for review and recommendation by September 2023. These plans should include the results of the committee's current work, if approved by the board, on reserve policies.
Secretary Totten, please take the roll call vote.
Certainly. Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Director Linefsky?
No.
Director Lear?
No.
Director Nowakowski?
Yes.
Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I, as the secretary, vote yes. 8 yes,
No,
2 no.
7 to 2.
7 to 2.
7 to 2.
With a vote of 7 to 2,
That's too many people.
the motion passes. We'll move to motion number 4, Treasurer Fast.
I move upon the completion of the 2021 audit, the RCSC board officers have a private phone call with the auditors so the auditors have the opportunity to present any significant issues to the board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice President McAdams. As maker of the motion, Treasurer Fast, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam President. In my career, the Audit Committee of the Board annually meets with the auditor in order to make sure that it hears the story firsthand from the auditor without management filter. And this is not an indictment of anybody. It's just a simple control that you put in place. And I think it proves effective, and it takes a lot of pressure off everybody, because the auditor can then say, well, you know, we're just a little bit bothered by this. Can you talk to your manager about that? And I've been on both sides of it. It's uncomfortable when they're talking about you, and it's uncomfortable when, well, it's more comfortable when they're talking to you. So that's what this motion does. Thanks.
The motion before you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. She's on. Just read it.
Second.
Thank you. The motion before you is that upon completion of the 2021 audit, the RCSC board officers have a private phone call with the auditor so that the auditors have the opportunity to present any significant issues to the board. Ms. Johnson, please read the names. I didn't second it.
You want me to read them, or are you going to?
Ms. Johnson.
When I read your name, please come up to the podium and state your name, member number, and most importantly, whether you're speaking for or against the motion. Each speaker has 3 minutes for comments as indicated by the light on the stage. And the first person would be Patrick Gannon.
Patrick Gannon, member number 150056, and I want to support this motion. I want to emphasize that having board members or a board audit committee have a phone call or face-to-face meeting with the independent auditors without management present is a standard operating procedure for independent audits of annual financial statements. In order for there to be an opportunity, as was mentioned, for the auditors to present any significant issues directly to the board. I also want to further point out, and this was alluded to or addressed by Director Fast as well in a different way, that having this meeting of the board with the independent auditors in no way suggests that there is necessarily anything of concern that the auditors have to report to the board without the management in the room. This private phone call is to ensure that there is an opportunity for candid dialogue directly between the auditors and the board. And a footnote to that would be, in my own experience in being the chair of an audit committee, that meeting or those meetings with the independent auditors have also been a time for them to compliment management on the things that they observe that they're doing very well. So this is a win-win-win all the way around. Please vote for this.
Dave Whalen.
Dave Whelan, 17077. I'm against this motion because it's already being done. I served as treasurer, and during the audit, the audit team, the outside accountants, called me up, and we discussed at length the internal controls of the rec centers. And there were no deficiencies. Also, if there were deficiencies, the auditors would present to management and the board what is known as a management letter, specifically outlining any problems they have identified, and there would be a response from management to the concerns raised. If one reads the audit report, the annual thing that comes out, you will note in the accountant's notes in the back, they make a statement that they have found no deficiencies in our statement, our controls, the way we report our revenue, and our balance sheet. So I just see this as a motion for change for a problem that really doesn't exist. Thank you.
Madam President, everyone spoke who signed up for this motion.
Thank you. There being no further member comments. I'm sorry, General Manager Cook.
Thank you, Madam President, Board of Directors. I support this 100%. In 30 years of dealing with audits, this always happened. And quite honestly, I thought that our auditors did talk to our president and vice president. They'd come to the general manager to do the exact same thing, to talk about controls, to talk about any issues that that they may see. So I believe that Director McCurdy has actually set up a potential meeting for this Friday. So I don't know that we need to have this motion. We support this 100%, and I think it's a win-win. So thank you.
Thank you. There being no further...
Wait, she's done. Oh, sorry.
I will move to director discussion. Is there director discussion?
Yep.
Director Linefsky.
I have one minor problem with this, and then I have a question. The minor problem is the phone call. I would rather have the word discuss or something, so it could be by Zoom, it can be in person, whatever. In other words, to give flexibility. I mean, would you welcome a friendly amendment to that effect?
Yes, I would.
Treasurer Fast.
I would offer a friendly amendment to change phone call to communication.
And then I have a question.
Yes.
Director Fast, why does it have only the officers and not the entire board?
Typically, in the for-profit world, it's the officers that, officers of the audit committee that have responsibility for this. It can be the entire board. It's, if you want to try to coordinate 9 schedules, this is just scheduling 4 schedules, and then we're fiduciarily responsible to let you know if there's anything that comes out of it.
Further discussion?
Just a little.
More question?
Director Nowakowski.
Would the rest of the board get a copy of the actual audit prior to the discussion, or would that be just a officers only?
Treasurer Fast?
Yeah, I think the entire board should get a copy of the entire audit, should they want it. Please.
General Manager Cook?
Madam President, Director Nowakowski, the entire board gets a copy of the entire audit report.
The document.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, Secretary Totten, please take the roll call vote.
This is for the amendment.
Okay, hold.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One moment, please. I will reread the motion. Okay. Excuse me, did you have a comment? No, thank you. Okay. The motion before you is that upon completion of the 2021 audit, the RCSC board officers the board officers will have a private communication with the auditors so that the auditors have the opportunity to present any significant issues to the board. Okay. Is there any other comment before we take the roll call vote? Secretary Totten.
Thank you. Director Collins?
Yes.
Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
Director Layer?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Lanefsky?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Director Nowakowski?
Yes.
I am the secretary, and I vote yes. 9 yes votes on the amendment.
With 9 yes votes, the motion passes. We'll move to motion 5. Treasurer Fast.
No, the amendment passed.
Oh.
We have to
Okay.
read the
Do I
motion.
have to read it again?
Just say as stated.
Okay. As the motion as stated, we'll take the vote. Secretary Totten.
Certainly. Director Nowakowski?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Lanefsky?
Yes.
Director Lear?
Yes.
Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I vote yes. It's 9 yes.
With the unanimous vote, the motion passes. We'll move to motion number 5. Treasurer Fast.
In accordance with the RCSC Articles of Incorporation.
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Madam President, Board of Directors, so I just want to make sure, since this was the first reading, does this mean we cannot hold this call until the second reading, or should we waive the second reading so that we can have this call?
I would make a motion to waive the second reading.
Motion is, I'm sorry.
Second.
Okay, seconded? Okay. Just take a look. Okay. Secretary Totten, please take a roll call vote.
Director Collins?
I have to vote no.
Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
Director Lair?
Yes.
Director Lanefsky?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Director Nowakowski?
I'm going to vote no.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
And I'm going to vote no. 6 no.
With a vote of 6-3, the motion passes second reading. Treasurer Fast, motion 5.
Thank you, President Fimmel. I know everyone came here for these financial motions, so I'm going to withdraw this motion as untimely until we can determine whether or not it's proper procedure to appoint an assistant treasurer at a time other than when the other officers are elected.
Excuse me, the motion has been withdrawn.
Another question. I have a question.
You have a question?
Before you do the next motion, could we have 5 minutes?
Let me finish this one first, please. Motion 5 has been withdrawn. At the request of Director Collins, we will take a 10-minute break.
Thank you.
We will move on to motion number 6. Treasurer Fast.
I move that all work on the Mountain View Project Option 2 and building pickleball courts at Lakeview be suspended until a committee of representatives from all interested groups can be appointed to address strategic issues and alternatives. The work of this committee will be presented for member review and comment at the September 2023 board meeting, along with all data gathered by the committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice President McAdam. Treasurer Fast, as the maker of the motion, would you like to comment?
Thank you, President Fimmel. My fellow directors asked to sit behind me while I speak. I think I know why. This is a very difficult motion to make. I hope everyone understands that I'm making this motion because I believe it is the best course to follow. After hundreds of hours of research, including listening to management and members, I am 100% convinced that the option 2 decision was made without any credible utilization data to support it. As a board member, my fiduciary duty to you, the members, require that I use sound business judgment to evaluate moving forward with large capital projects to assure it benefits the membership as a whole and is the best among options available. To me, this requires I have a full understanding of the membership and utilization data that is just now being collected before spending more to find out what we already know, the cost. As General Manager Cook has assured us recently, the cost of whatever is built will be within $2 to $3 million of what is in the PIF. In other words, between $21.5 and $27.5 million for Phase 1. The total price tag with all phases is about $40 million. And I would remind you that Phase 3's approval was contingent. We will soon have a broad data set that will give all of us a clearer picture of current and future membership wants and needs. And in my opinion, we are fiduciarily required to take into account this data before continuing down whatever path is supported by the majority of the membership. And yes, we heard you loud and clear and communicate to ASU that their midterm grade on the survey project is unsatisfactory. So here's what I'm proposing. Oh, wait a minute. In a nutshell, this motion allows development of options to meet the identified needs of the members. Option 1 and 2 for Mountain View have already been developed, so the members will get a chance to compare these options with various other options. These options will include the Performing Arts Center, a plan to address the explosive growth of this sport with a strange name, pickleball, and a plan to meet the need for a sports pool. So here is what I'm proposing if this motion passes. At the next board meeting, I would make a motion to fund from the carry forward rental of a theater for performances of the Players Club in an amount not to exceed $50,000. Of course, the amount is subject to discussion. The city of Peoria rents out their theater for $1,030 a day, so this equates to about 48 days of use. This will allow the Players Club to have a decent place to perform for the next 2 years while members and management develop and implement viable alternatives for a performing arts center. Every member of this board agrees, I believe, that a performing arts center would be an amenity worth having. I would also make a motion to allocate an amount not to exceed $50,000, again, subject to discussion, from the carry forward to repair and resurface and refresh the Mountain View pickleball courts this summer. Bids should be requested ASAP after the motion passes. In addition, the motion I propose to make would authorize the purchase of 2 pickleball court mats for an amount not to exceed $20,000 for use inside the Mountain View Auditorium during the summer and future use in some indoor or outdoor facility. These mats are used in professional play and can be rolled up and stored while not in use. This should allow time to develop and recommend alternatives for meeting the needs, future needs of this very popular sport. Finally, I would make a motion to direct management to schedule water volleyball time in underutilized pools at times that are conducive to the growth of this club. This will displace a few to benefit many. This will allow time for developing alternatives for the location of a sports pool that best meets the needs of this and other water sports clubs and the membership. We have a long way to go and a short time to get there in developing the best capital improvement plan for all of Sun City for the next 5 years. We currently have no such plan. This motion is a first step to assuring RCSC makes smart capital allocation decisions that are fully supported by data and projections that lead to decisions that provide the maximum benefit to the majority of the membership. Thank you for listening.
The motion before us why am I having such a
So the motion before us is that all work on the Mountain View project, option 2, and building pickleball courts at Lakeview be suspended until a committee of representatives from all interested groups can be appointed to address strategic issues and alternatives. The work of this committee will be presented for member review and comment at the September 2023 board meeting, along with all data gathered by the committee.
Ms. Johnson, please read the names of cardholders who signed up to speak to this motion.
When I read your name, please come up to the podium and state your name, member number, and most importantly, whether you're speaking for or against the motion. Each speaker will have 3 minutes for comments as indicated by the light on the stage. The first person would be Scott Harrington.
Scott Harrington, 151138. I want to thank each and every board member here for what they do. I know it's a hard job. Mr. Fast, thank you for offering an idea for the other pools, but the pools are not designed for volleyball. the way they would put our nets in there and our poles. Oakmont is about the only place that we can play. We're growing as a club, and I'm against the option of holding off any longer on option 2. I respect your fiduciary responsibility, but as a club, we are growing and our usage is growing, and we need some place to go. Thank you.
Scott?
Lynn Light.
Can I ask you one question?
Yes, sir.
Way back when, water volleyball was played in the marionette pool.
Yes.
Is that not suitable?
The way that we have to set the poles up, we're holding them down with weights, or there's ropes that are extending out where they're tripping hazards and things like that.
It's less than ideal.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's good as a temporary, but no.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Scott, Madam President, can I ask him a question?
Director Collins.
If this motion passes, would you want to be on the committee?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn Leibold.
Board of Directors, Lynn Leibold, 102-369. I've read the motion John Fast has proposed, and I'm very much upset that any board member would even think of undoing what a past board has done. It's not a conflict of interest, it isn't mismanagement, illegal, or any other reason that would be valid. So far, we seem to have spent about $200,000 getting this going. What happens to that money? Does it disappear? Does it get bigger? What? Unfortunately, this board has not done one thing to make me think they are competent. Their first orders of business were to decide on a definition of chair, co-chair, vice chair, and another rename of the member board exchange. Please remember, you've been elected to serve all 39,000 residents, not just those who voted for you. We're not building anything in Sun City for you or me or any current resident. We're looking for future possibilities. There are a whole new generation coming in here who may or may not like pickleball, basketball, or even golf. But we're not building a basketball court. We're building another multi-purpose room because we'll be getting rid of one. And to even consider moving the whole project elsewhere, or even part of it, shows disrespect to the residents that showed up at 2 town hall meetings to express what they wanted, and the long-range planning committee worked on providing. You can't undo something that readily. The theater, moving the theater somewhere else, is going to be a very expensive proposition, and you think it'd be $40 million by the time the whole project got done here? It would be an awful lot more if you split it. Please, stop being obstructive. Pay attention to all of the residents. Thank you.
Dave Whalen.
Actually, I was hoping Patrick Gannon would go before me. Nobody wants to be the first to turn in their test paper. On this motion, well, here we go again. We're kicking the can down the road. We've punted more on this than the Cardinals on a Sunday football game. Another committee, another study, more data, more changes in plans, more, data, Judy. Apologies to Cary Grant. The pickleball courts at Mountain View were only intended to be temporary. That's because it was presented by a member who was a civil engineer who drew up very nice plans because of the Marionette project. Once the Marionette project was done, the pickleball courts were supposed to disappear. They had taken extra tennis courts. Pickleball, yes, it's a fast-growing sport, but a facility to fill their needs, where are we going to put it? Certainly not at Mountain View. It seems that the swimmers, the pool people, and their acre of concrete aren't going to give up any space. This thing isn't going to get, if it's ever built, it probably will not start until late next year, probably 2025. And why are we wasting time? It's just a ridiculous motion. Sorry, John, but that's my opinion. Nothing personal.
Thanks, Dave.
Charlie Peterson.
Charlie Peterson, 130438, President Fimmel and Board. I'm a member of the basketball and volleyball clubs here in Sun City, and I believe that this motion should be turned down. It's completely and utterly redundant. You know, there's been studies, there's been ample opportunity for people to come forward and testify, investigate, and study this for years. The previous speakers spoke about a couple of town hall meetings, which out of that, the main items that people wanted were performing arts, a resort pool, and a gym. And that was moved on to the Long Range Planning Committee. In February 2025, there was a ad hoc committee set up to study it. I think there was probably 12 different people on that represented different clubs in sports. They made their recommendation to the board. It was approved in in June of 2021, and then the board approved option 2 also in June 2021. So here we are again looking at delaying something that should have got going a long time ago. In last January in 2022, a 90-day moratorium was proposed to study it and bring board members up to speed on what was happening at Mountain View. That ended and the project moved forward. But now, here we are in February, 1 year later, essentially doing the same thing, putting the project on a hold and doing another study, which there's been plenty of studies done already. You know, this is starting to feel a little bit like the movie Groundhog Day. Every time a new board comes on, they want to study it some more, and we're getting nowhere. I think theater arts has waited long enough. I'm sure they've been waiting at least 10 years to get something done, probably more than that. And basketball and volleyball would just like a place to be able to play, a multi-purpose gym that would accommodate a lot of other things, including badminton, dance, aerobics, bazaars, you name it. So anyway, please turn this down and let's move forward.
I have a few questions for you, if I could. May I ask you some questions?
Yes.
At the town halls, how many people were there?
Hundreds.
450.
There was many people there.
There were 450, that was the count. The ad hoc committee's recommendation that you said, and I have it right here, says leave lawn bowling as is. Remove tennis courts and replace with 4 pickleball courts. Create a social space and golf cart parking in current gravel area under electric solar panels. That was the recommendation of the ad hoc committee. That recommendation was rejected by a small member of the boards, small number of members of the board. So I agree with you that the ad hoc committee went through an exhaustive process to have their recommendation ignored. Thank you for your comment.
Well, again, I attended a number of those meetings, and the things that came out of those long-range, or not the long-range planning, but the town halls, was performing arts, a pool, a resort-style pool, and a gym, and that's what they went forward to recommend, and the board approved that. Thank you.
Thank you.
B.J. Martindale.
I'm Betty Martindale. My number is 161808. I am against this motion. We've studied it and studied it and studied it, and we're sick of it. Monday morning quarterback doesn't get to change the score. There's always going to be someone with a better idea. There's always going to be somebody who wants to rethink it. It just can't work that way. The board has many important issues you need to be moving forward with. Trust your past board members. This one's been settled. Leave it. Inflation is just going to make it worse the longer you delay. There are so many clubs that can use a performing arts center. There's obviously a screaming need for many things that this will provide. Don't make us wait any longer. Thank you.
May I ask a question? When you say there are many, many clubs, are they currently using a facility?
It's virtually unusable. Even the theater group is
No,
it's
are they
hard to
using
use.
any other facility?
Well, the Tip Top Dancers just put on a great show here. The
Right.
Piano Club performs, the karaoke. They use the big rooms in Fairview.
And so we're going to make those empty to move it to another space before?
Oh, they'll get filled. It's hard to get. It's very hard to get space when we need space.
Point of order. Excuse me. Madam Director
Lair. Thank you. I would ask that, could we please listen to what the members have to, this is their time. Let them speak. We have an opportunity afterwards to discuss.
There may,
order.
But instead of posting questions to the people that are trying to give an answer, I agree with what she's saying. We're getting questioned about why we want to not postpone it because the person who wants the amendment keeps questioning about postponing it.
I will not question anymore.
That is a point of order. I agree with what
Treasurer
you said.
Fast. We will have order. Madam, please continue.
there may have been only 450 people at that meeting, but it was twice the number that were expected, and every club had every opportunity to have their voice heard. There were many opportunities for input, and we just can't keep replowing the same field. You've got other fields that need tilling.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, one moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, first, we'll have order, okay? Let us agree to that. We're following Robert's Rules of Order, and we need to have order. I would like to say a couple of things, because I think there's some confusion about this motion. We have an interest as directors in hearing our members. I said we would do this together, and we will. This is not a delaying tactic. It's not about restudying whether we need a performing arts center or not. Clearly, we do. This community will benefit from having a performing arts center. No one wants to delay it. I know you're a player, Herb, but I feel it, okay?
I just agree with what?
Herb, please.
I know, but I...
Okay, please. Stop. The primary purpose of this motion is because we hear you and we listen to you. We heard you at the last meeting saying things like, we don't need that. We got a gentleman who comes today and says, yes, we need that. We have a lot of people with a lot of experience. We want to hear the members. That's why we're doing this. This is not about what the directors want to do. The directors want to hear what the members want to do. And there seems to be continued contention about what the members want to do. We also have to do what's best for the community as a whole. I know I was at the Mountain View. I'll tell you what I heard at the Mountain View. We need a performing arts center. Got it. Tell you what else I heard there. We like our resort pool just the way it is. I hear that today. Leave our resort pool alone. Well, this construction doesn't leave your resort pool alone. I just want you to know that, okay? With this option 2, the first thing that happens is we lose pickleball courts in an environment where we have more players and more members wanting to play pickleball. That's a bit of an unresolved problem. This isn't about taking a lot of time, kicking the can down the road. It's about making sure that the members are heard and that what's happening is in the best interest
Point of order.
of this community.
Point of order. Madam President.
Director Lair.
Point of
Ms.
order.
Yes, point of order, Ms. Lair.
This is the time for members to come forward and speak.
Yes, ma'am,
Let's
it
give them
is.
an opportunity to talk. They've
Yes.
waited a long time.
Yes, ma'am, it is. Thank you for reminding me of that. Ms. Johnson, please call the next member.
Patrick Gannon. Okay. Thank you. James Kepler.
James Kepler, 127409. I sent out an email to all you board members with a diagram of the current Mountain View facility. First of all, I'd like to say that people have done their best to try and muddy the waters about this proposal. Just yesterday, I got the Independent with Margaret Ellington saying that the meetings that we did were 7 years ago. That is totally false. It was about 3 to 3.5 years ago when we started this whole process. We had people that want to paint this new facility that we're building as nothing more than a gymnasium. The fact is, when we tear down Mountain View, we lose 9,000 square feet of indoor flat floor space. All we were trying to do was have a replacement space that would have a retractable basketball hoops. There were no bleachers, there's no luxury seating, there's no bandstand. It was just an open floor facility that could be used for just about anything you wanted to replace the missing space that we have. Currently, if we keep Mountain View the way it is, most of our facilities are not secure. You can play pickleball, you can play mini golf, you can play tennis without ever checking in. And when I checked yesterday, they told me that they get a lot of numbers from the pickleball people that are not legitimate board Sun City members. They turn those in. So we have to try to get a way of grasp a hold of making this facility secure. The other thing we found out was I tried to go to the people that assign spaces to our board, our clubs. There is no known data for how many people or groups use Mountain View except for the Players Club and something else. If one or two clubs use it 1 or 2 times a year, that doesn't exist. We have no idea. Yes, McAdam.
Yes, so after, I think you came and spoke at the member exchange meeting, I actually went right down to the corporate offices, and I spoke with Mr. Cook about this, and I said, we would like to have that data. That data does now exist.
Good.
I have the data for the exact usage of the Mountain View Auditorium, ranges utilization. If you consider the entire auditorium to be used, if just 2 people are in there practicing for a play, which is a little bit of a stretch, but let's assume that that's the case, the utilization of that building ranges between 12 and 40%, depending on the month of the year. And I'd be happy to share that with you if you'd like to see it.
Well, thank you, because I was not able to get that when I came in, but you probably have a little more sway than I do. I'm against this motion to delay it again. We have delayed and delayed and delayed. All I want to say is that we need a performing arts theater. We kept a pool. We added in a sports pool. We added in a lap pool. This was all there. And again, this is not just this extra building we wanted to build is not just a gymnasium. It's a facility that can be used for many purposes, including possibly throwing up a basketball. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter McLeod.
Oh, that's better. Hi, Peter McLeod, 127204. Like most people have spoken here, I feel that going to a new committee is a waste of time. It's been done. Secondly, it's unrealistic. To think that you're going to get a committee now, by the time you get through frames of reference, if you want those frames of reference to have any validity, that's going to take time. Getting a committee is going to take time. It's summer. You're not going to get a report in September. The only report you can get in September will be a rubber stamp based on the people you chose to be in the committee. The committee members would be either people who have an interest in a sport, and so it depends how you stack the committee, and how are you going to get the committee members for people with an interest in sport who can't play that sport now? Or you get naysayers. People just don't want anything done. Longer we stall, maybe it won't happen. Or you get people who have a general community interest. But none of those are going to come together to a consensus, common understanding between now and September or December. And where we're going to be a year from now is another election, another new set of board members who all think they will undo what the previous ones did. We'll get nowhere. I've been through this a number of times in my career, and currently still, right now, I have 3 projects that I'm pursuing, working on, in feasibility studies with new recreation centers. My work is in operations, not on the construction, but I do the cost of staffing, maintaining, long-range capital and major repairs, so I can give the community some sense of what this facility will cost after it's built. We're talking about the other side, to build it. But what I see over and over again is communities that stall. So let's take this one. $40 million, 27 for first 2, 40 for the whole. If you'd done it 3 years ago, you would probably have saved 7 to 10 million, maybe slightly more. You could build everything. Yeah, 30% is in 3 years. That's what's happened to construction and recreation facilities. So you would have then to build this facility, and you would have enough money left over to build a pickleball pavilion. You could put it somewhere else, obviously, it's not going to fit in that footprint. But you've wasted that money, you're going to waste more money, and eventually we're either going to be spending all our money or we're not going to get the facilities we want. So in my mind, get on with it. Don't think that you're smarter than the last board, and recognize if you do this, the next board is going to think they're smarter than you, and they're going to do it all over again.
Nancy Chapin.
One moment, please. Director Collins.
I just wanted to ask you, I'm intrigued by what you said. And these cost estimates that we're throwing at everybody were roughly almost 3 years ago when they were first come to the cost estimates. We have not got any updates since then what the costs are. That's what a lot of our problem is. We don't know what this is going to cost. So you said 30% increase. Just
Yeah. Now, my knowledge in that is more rinks and pools, more sophisticated equipment, but that's where it is. And I'm looking at one right now where they're taking out each area, and it does have, it's a community center for an entire large First Nations band. And they have a lot of these same facilities, and they are talking about significant increases over the number of years, not far off that. Different town, different situation, but I think the principle applies.
Thank you.
And if you're, just know that what you're going to do will cost you more tomorrow than today.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you.
Nancy Chapin.
Nancy Chapin, 146922. Good morning, directors, managers, and members.
Good morning.
I am Nancy Chapin, and I'm a member of the Sun City Players, Tip Top Dancers, and Ukulele Club. Yay! There are 17 entertainment clubs, all of us looking for a better performing arts center, and have been for 60 years. So this is a positive recap of 60 years, but I'll do it in 3 minutes. And what we have, well, first of all, I want you to know I've helped contribute ideas in collaborative meetings. Started 4 years ago with the design for a performing arts center, the theater portion. I'm always impressed with our volunteer talent living right here, ready to perform various duties. We are the largest and most active community center in the nation, and we continue to volunteer countless hours to provide excellent entertainment. Del Webb intended Sun City to provide fun fulfillment for everyone. Our outdoor Sundome has brought joy to audiences and participants from the time it was built. And that was an outside performing center. We are still waiting on our indoor performance center, which Del Webb wanted us to have. In the meantime, we've been making do with auditorium type of stages. Thousands of volunteers have made us the Fun City since inception. Yeah, you know, I'm not used to speaking to an audience from the back, so. Okay, so any performance, whether it's theater, dance productions, or concerts, typically require 3 months of preparation. Meetings behind the scene involve selecting scripts, dance numbers, and music scores. Costumes, makeup, props, set design, auditions, stage arrangement are discussed. Schedules are coordinated. Then rehearsals and practice begin. More volunteers are recruited for sounds, lights, and set construction. Directors, choreographers, conductors, fine production assistants for managing behind the scenes, setup, cleanup, and breakdown in each performance. While performers polish their performances, or production, more volunteers get to work coordinating marketing, publicity, newspaper coverage, ticket sales, and ushering. We have been providing all this selfless volunteering for over 60 years. We even had an improved theater design for Mountain View Center decades ago, and it was thwarted back then by the Roller Skaters Club, who insisted they keep our really current and tired old Mountain View building because they needed it as a roller skating rink. We got delayed. Can I finish a paragraph?
Please do.
Yes, ma'am.
Performance clubs have thrilled families, our children and grandchildren, neighbors and guests for 60 years. We are overdue for an upgrade. The community will be amazed by the spectacular shows we can put on with our talent. All we need is some state-of-the-art materials, high-tech lighting and design, and sound, safety features, and last but not least, comfortable seating. Not to mention the disabled who have complained to me as I've ushered, I can't come anymore, I can't sit in these seats. Or to mention it, yeah. Anyway, let's get this built now. Performing arts centers keep a culture alive, a city's culture alive. Without it, we become dull. I want us to continue with the already allocated building plans and blueprints for Mountain View Center without further delay. Please keep our already budgeted building plans going now.
Yeah. Treasurer Fest.
Can I just make a confirmation comment?
Yeah.
I attended the Curious Savage. It was excellent.
Yes, they're here. Thank you very much.
Tom Swenson?
Before I start, is it Robert's rules to have the directors challenge people who are speaking out here trying to tell you our opinion, or you just override us, correct us, berate us? I find that appalling.
Mr. Fest.
That's appalling. That was rhetorical. Now, I am Tom Swenson, number 135906. I'm speaking against the motion. I'm dressed as Mark Twain today because when it came to politics, he never minced words, and neither will I. I'm speaking today as Vice President and on behalf of Sun City players, but I feel that I'm also speaking today for the thousands of performing artists and fans throughout Sun City. You should do better. When it comes to Mountain View, we've been the good kid in the family. We followed the rules, done our part in good faith. We've been civil, respectable. We took our place in line for the replacement of a decrepit roller rink. We attended town meetings. We reached out and talked to countless people and officials and directors. You can do better. When pickleballers were mistreated in the reveal of the initial Mountain View plans, we supported them and complained to the board president. Even when the board went way beyond its normal processes and shriveled in the face of the pressure from the uncivil minority in promising to build more courts for them immediately, we even supported that. You can do better. I worked with emotionally challenged children for a long part of my life. The challenge was always ensuring that the good kids got the same attention as the violent, threatening, and screaming ones. No more, no less. This board and this minority group of citizens has showed me the wisdom that I lived under that principle. I know you can do better. Do you really want to follow the example of our national and state politicians coming in and reneging on the promises made previously? Do you really want to set a precedent of following the distracting object in front of you instead of following a mature and reasoned plan? We players need to put in place a contractual commitment starting now for 2024. We need to know where we'll be in order to make the decisions of what plays will do and what it will cost. All this indecision and waffling puts us in an extraordinary position which threatens our club's future and that of the performing arts community in general. Shame on you for putting us in this precarious position. I spoke with you, Mr. Fast. Now, 2 weeks ago, you pulled me aside and told me how committed you were to finding us a facility. And I assume you're going based on this current plan to have us move out so you can break it down and build a new one. But no, it's so we can move out to put pickleball courts in our building. Then you turn around and make this motion. That feels like a slap in the face where mentally they were very confused.
Please continue.
Cockrell.
She wants you to come back and continue.
No.
Oh, sir.
No, we're fine.
I'm not going to have you challenge anything I said. I'm the community speaking to you, and
I understand.
eventually you're saying they're saying this is a bad idea.
Just giving you the opportunity to continue.
We're getting more time.
Encore.
Thank you for seeing that I probably hadn't finished. Maybe it was just me when I'm talking about our discussion. Maybe I was wrong. But I thought you were talking about vacating Mountain View for the new building. And now, again, we're being shipped out of town for 2 years for pickleball. Now, finally, every Sun City resident who sees this video or hears me today and hears our plea needs to contact a board member immediately and voice your concerns about this shameful treatment we've received. As Twain once said, it's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled.
Thank you.
Rick Cockrell. Sorry.
Rick Cockrell, 146759. I'm speaking in opposition to this motion. Good morning. Thank you all for the opportunity to allow me to address you. My wife and I live within walking distance of Mountain View Rec Center. We mostly make use of the pool and the surrounding deck. It's one of the reasons we chose to buy a home where we did. We're in favor of moving forward on the plans to remodel Mountain View. The sooner that this remodel is completed will give us even more time to walk to the pool we love. None of us is getting any younger. When the ad hoc committee was meeting in 2019, not 7 years ago, we followed that group's progress, and we were pleased with their recommendations. This project has already been stalled long enough. We like the idea of a multi-use facility. The theater's in desperate need of updating. The workout room is small, so small that we walk over to Fairway instead because they've got a better facility over there. We're opposed to losing 9,000 square feet of indoor air-conditioned space. Karen McAdam, I'm sorry, I didn't address you. Thank you for the information you gave to Jim a little bit ago. If you share that with him, he'll share that with me on club use. But the loss of that space would be impossible to determine without that data. Why stall any further? We are only sentencing ourselves to a shorter amount of time to enjoy what we consider one of the most desirable facets of living in Sun City, and that's our rec centers. When we heard that the train was pulling out of the station, we were overjoyed that finally some progress was going to be made. The definition of stall is to impede progress. This project's been stalled long enough. It's time for progress. Please keep that train on its tracks and keep it on time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis Christ.
My name is Dennis Christ, 124779. I just want to speak in favor of this motion for the reason that the phase one of this project was approved by a board that basically no longer exists. There's been 60 years of no performing arts center, whereas you've got this facility to perform. You have concerts here that are very well attended. You've got $20 tickets. If you went to a 400 seats theater, you'd have to charge $60 or more for the same entertainment venue. And you have other facilities close by that you can use. They've been offered by the board to pay for it. And you're not going to get your facility as soon as you think, because I play softball and we've been promised a facility for 2 years now and it still hasn't been designed or applied, or permit's been applied for yet. So you're not going to get your facility when you want. And the thing is that Phase 1 has only been approved. Phase 2 and 3 have not been approved. And so what would happen if the next board realizes, or if there's a financial crunch that comes by where you have to spend millions and millions of dollars on water abatement issues at the golf courses, and we don't have the money to do it because we spent $40 million on a facility. Just keep that in mind. Do the right things. Do data. You know, yes, we have a gathering here. Obviously, it's a biased gathering, so get information from others as well. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Bjork.
One 112-650. You already said my name. Hi, board. First, I want to say thank you for the oversight and accountability motions that have been brought forward here today. I think there's a lot of members out here that and homeowners that appreciate it. I'm here to, as everybody knows, I'm talking about improving our facilities here in Sun City because, as one member put it, erroneously, Sun Shitty, and I don't want that to become the true name of this community. So I'm for improvement. However, as you know, I brought up the decisions of the past board, the decisions of past management not being sometimes the smartest decisions in a lot of people's views. And what I noticed on the video is that my facial expression, I shouldn't blame all of you because it wasn't all of you up there. You're trying to do the right thing and make sure that the money is being spent wisely. And that's what I think everybody wants. So as Rusty mentioned in The Independent, lawn bowling was put in, but he only put in $223,000, but I understand it was $668,000. And so to rip that out less than 10 years later is not wise spending. And going back to what you're saying, Director Fast, you're indicating that the original ad hoc, and while Margaret may have said 7 years, it's going on 5. There's a big difference between now and then. Yes, we need a performing arts center or some place for these folks to feel like it's a useful facility for them. However, I looked at the board policy 24 for PIF. Projects must be over $300,000 before approved by the board, and they have to have a life expectancy or depreciation of at least 15 years. We spent $668,000 on lawn bowling, and we're going to rip it out less than 10 years later. That doesn't meet the depreciation of 15 years. So I don't understand why some of these decisions are being made, but I am for this motion because of the fact that I'd like you to have some time. And, okay, what was brought up was the moratorium, but that moratorium wasn't very clear. Nobody knew who was going to do what to figure out what was going on for the new board members, and the time just kept clicking, and nobody figured anything out. Well, that's not a fair use and a fair assessment for the people that asked for it. So all I'm asking is don't kick the can down the road, but truly take an effort to look at this. And I think that's going to be there because of what I've heard this morning. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next name I can't read, but I'm going to read the member number. It's 131809.
I thought I printed nicely.
No, you wrote. I couldn't tell what it was. I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Duke Loney. It's 131809. I didn't even know about this meeting till last night, so I don't have really anything prepared. But my general thoughts on this is we live within walking distance of Mountain View, and we've enjoyed the facilities they've had, but it's kind of like getting to be an old car. you know, it's performing its function, but it's not doing it very well. And I got a little bit different slant than from everything I've heard so far. We're kind of taking the wheels off the car. We're going down the street with only 3 wheels. We've shut down the putt-putt. We've shut down the spa, which is used by a lot of people for therapy in the morning. And a lot of us have had a lot of surgeries and things, and losing that, and it looks like it's going to be years before that thing maybe opens again. And same thing with the putt-putt. I mean, it's not much exercise, but when you get old, just getting up and walking around and moving. And I know there are other facilities that have those amenities, but they're a long way. And I guess just what I'm asking, it doesn't look like this is, whatever plans used, it's not going to go forward very quickly. Earlier we talked about carryover funds and all of this. I'm not an accountant either, I'm an engineer. But as long as there's no plan that's going to happen in the near future, why don't we reopen up the spa? Let's make some repairs and get the putt-putt open, and at least be able to use what we have until all this bickering gets over on what we're going to decide on. A little bit of maintenance on a car isn't that much. I mean, you can debate forever what kind of new car you want and everything, but in the meantime, let's keep what we have running a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margaret Ellingson.
Margaret Ellingson, member 9953. I have macular degeneration, and so I've asked Susan to read my comments.
Along with her comments, I have some.
Do you want me to hand it up now so they can look at it while you're doing it?
So again, Susan Bjork, 112650, but this is for Margaret, 9953 Ellingson. Her caretaker wasn't here today, so I offered to read this for her, given her condition. My name is Margaret Ellingson, and my member number is 9953. Like the gentleman at the last exchange meeting, I am one of the few members with a 4-digit number. I have been a homeowner in Sun City since 1997. During the past 26 years, I paid little attention to how the money I contributed to RCSC was being spent. But with the increase in assessment dues and the lack of maintaining our existing facilities, I felt it was necessary to speak up and get involved. My parents lived through the Depression, and I was raised in a family that closely watched how every penny was spent. To this day, I still turn off every light when I leave a room, and I probably am one of the very few that will wash out Ziploc baggies and reuse it several times. Because I am very careful about not spending money unless it is absolutely necessary, I felt it was important to come to the meeting today to speak in support of suspending the plans for the Mountain View project until September. The current proposed plans were pushed through too quickly without adequate due diligence. Spending $40 million for this project is excessive, especially when you factor in the cost of needing to build new pickleball courts at Lakeview first, not to mention the noise, which we've all seen on the news. Sorry, my own commentary. Even though we were not a city, the members of this community should have an opportunity to give input on a project of this magnitude, as we are the ones who will be funding it. There are many issues and problems with these plans that need to be addressed. Some of these issues are noise factor with the gym and theater being connected, which would require excessive acoustical panels for sound dampening, large number of handicapped parking spaces required, unnecessary spending, which I've already alluded to that, or specifically spoke to that, loss of the use to various clubs currently utilizing the Mountain View Rec Center, issues with the traffic flow with a divided street, code violations. Mountain View is located within a residential area without major streets for ingress and egress. There most likely would be some traffic and safety restrictions that would need to be addressed. There are height restrictions on the buildings, which may prove to be a problem with both the theater and the multipurpose gymnasium. One other issue to take into consideration is water drainage and the flooding on the streets, An easy solution would be if a performing arts center was built at a different location. Then none of these issues would not exist. These issues would not exist, and there would be a win-win for all members and clubs involved. Remember, if you don't take the time to do it right, you'll find the time to do it twice. Again, most of the time it just comes down to common sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Darla Akins.
Darla Akins, 54010. And I had my speech written up to speak on all the motions. I didn't know you were going to separate them. And then when I saw that, I was like, I don't want to get up here 5 times. I'm sorry. So if it looks like I'm getting a little off track, it's because I am, because I voted that way. Anyway, I find it fascinating that, Director Fast, you've been on the board for 2 months, and you have been, or maybe still are, a snowbird. I know you're going to say you've had a house here since 2012. But everybody knows just because you have a house here doesn't mean you lived in it since 2012. I'm also fascinated with the fact that you want to stop the Mountain View project, and you all keep saying over and over again that you listen to the members, yet even though this project has been in the works for at least 5 years, with 2 town hall meetings that you were not here for, an ad hoc committee that you were not, once again, were not here for, you want to stop the project and form another committee and disregard what the members have already said they wanted. I keep hearing we need to move the theater to Lakeview, and we don't need pickleball at Lakeview. Have you ever discussed this with the board members of these clubs and asked them what they wanted? Well, I'm here to tell you there have been several meetings with these club board members, and they have agreed to the designs the way they are. The theater is going to be used for more than just plays. Hello. There's a lot of use for that. And we also need another auditorium like this, because just like today, line dance got kicked out. And the line dance got kicked out last week, I think, was for Tip Top. And the dance this Saturday is going to get kicked out because of the Italian festival. So if we had another auditorium like this, I wish I would name that place as an auditorium, not just a gym, because it's going to be used for more than just gyms, not just baskets. Have you been remember your high school days? The gym was used for more than just basketball. They had proms in there, they had dances in there, they had all kinds of stuff in there. So, hello. And if you need a stage, you got the little metal portable stage you can roll in and set up. Anyway, just want to add that a little bit. I know a couple that used to live in Portobello, and Portobello needed to do something with their restaurant, just one building. The board decided to remodel it, and the remodeling cost was going to be about $700,000. Well, they started trying to do that and ran into some big problems. They found mold and other issues, and they ended up having to tear it down to the cost of $2.4 million. They fired the whole board. And just before you start saying, maybe I'm just disgruntled because I didn't get reelected, I want you to know that the Sun City Elks are extremely happy that I didn't get reelected, because they have already approached me about appointing me to some committees over there, and they want me to get more involved. So they've already said they got plans for me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn Anderson. No? Lisa Ricord? No? Madam President, everyone has spoken who signed up to speak on this motion.
Thank you. Secretary Totten.
I'm kind of tallying, and I didn't understand the gentleman who Was it Duke? Are you for or against?
I am against delay.
You're against our motion, or the motion. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we've heard from the members who requested to speak. Do we have any members who did not sign up to speak who would like to speak at this time? Sir.
I always say I'm never going to speak at these things. Norman Dixon, 2429. Served on the board for 6 years. We put up Fairway, we put up the Bell Recreation Area, we made the insurance company pay for the collapse of Sundial. The original project for Mountain View was not what it turned out to be. It morphed into a much more complicated project. Having done large projects, there is not enough room to accommodate all of the ideas that you have. It'll be a mistake if you continue to do it. I don't like delay, and on behalf of the theater, I've tried to get the theater for the last 22 years. So I'm not against the theater, but we've got to make sure we get things in the right place, and we get them in places that do not restrict future growth, because it's going to be the appearance of Sun City and the facilities that attract new people here, which keeps this going for future generations. I think it is time to stop and reassess. It does not have to take a long time. And we can make arrangements for all the people that have their legitimate needs. But to go ahead when it becomes fairly obvious that it's not a project. I mean, you're talking a project up to 10 years. I don't want to dismay you, but I'll be 94. And I won't use any of those facilities. So if we can get in something prior to that time, you would make me and all of the other octogenarians happy. I think the decision is correct to delay it. I think the other decision is to get on the stick and appoint people and committees so that this can be cleared in a hurry, so that when you get the final decision, it'll be one that everybody can live with.
Thank you. I see Mr. Pearson coming, and, okay.
Is this our process? No. No. This is not our process. You sign up.
Don't let him speak from the floor.
Please do not speak from the floor, sir. You're out of order.
Turpin Daughters, 117436. I'm against the delay. Delay costs money. And we're trying to save money here, aren't we? There have been multiple studies over multiple years that have led to where we are now. It has been approved by a previous board, and it is time to move on and get this thing done. Thank you.
Bill Pearson, 133438. Wasn't going to speak. I wanted to listen to what people said, but as long as you gave me the opportunity, thank you. Historically, it's an interesting discussion because there was a theater planned on the corner of 99th and Bell Road. The Bell project was $5 million over budget, and DevCo decided they better not put it in. And here's an interesting footnote to that. The RCSC was delighted that they didn't get it because it was a massive cost. It was a huge building, and they were going to give it to us. I guess it would have solved some of our problems. That said, history is telling. In 1981, The board had the courage to ask the community if they wanted to buy the Sun Bowl. So when people talk about our history and how valuable it is or invaluable to make their argument, which everybody does, the board was gracious enough to say to the community, do you want to buy the Sun Bowl? 29,000 votes came in. 2,000 of them had no markings on them. The majority agreed to it by a fairly large number, and it was a $2 tack on to the $40 a year fee. They weren't afraid of the community. So I sat through one of your meetings at Mountain View, and I watched the other one on the ad hoc, the meeting to hear what we were going to get at Mountain View, and I watched the other one closely because I'm fascinated by this concept, and we keep hearing about how the community turned out in force, 450 people, God love them, that's a good number. Never once did anybody tell me or anyone in that room $40 million. $40 million. Oh, here's the other number you got to consider. When we fixed the golf courses because of the fifth water management plan, $20 million. $60 million dedicated and off the books for the next 6 or 7 years out of the PIF. Oh, and by the way, PIF sales and revenue is falling. My good friend Dave Wieland used the Cardinals in their constant punting, the ball down the road. I'll give you one. One of the greatest quarterbacks in the world, Aaron Rodgers, might be up for sale. Should he go play for the Cardinals? You ready to write a check for $60, $70 million a year to have him? See, everybody wants a theater, but if you don't attach the costs to what you're building, which is way more than a theater, you just miss the mark. The number attached to the project matters. It always has, it always will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments from the members, I will open the discussion for the directors. Mr. Collins, Director Collins.
Thank you. I just have a few things. Mr. Cook, I was told that when the construction of this starts, the pool will not be staying open like it was originally planned. Is that true?
Madam President, Director Collins, that is true, and the reason behind that is, one, from a cost perspective, it's cheaper to close the entire facility down. Two, scheduling, we can complete the whole project quicker if we shut everything down. And quite honestly, three, we weren't sure, even if we did keep or attempted to keep any of the sections open, that it would be feasible, because we just don't know what that construction site would look like, and do we want people driving into the parking lot when we've got construction going on, and we really didn't understand the electrical aspects as well as trying to keep things open.
That makes sense. My second question is, I know we don't have any drawings for the Mountain View. Will we have them by September?
So I'm going to defer to Mike, but we are working on schematics, and I believe those are coming soon, if I'm not mistaken. But Mike, do you want to talk to that?
Madam President, Board of Directors, we are in schematic design, and there's a long list of deliverables that aren't drawings that is part of schematic design. It's 3D modeling, it's starting to communicate with the county, et cetera. We're almost to the end. In the management report, we said we're 50% done with the schematic design. Well, that's from a billing perspective to the architect. We're really closer to 75% done. They're going to be done shortly. Then you go into design development, and that's where we start cranking out the drawings. And per our schedule, and I believe Mr. Cook highlighted this when he gave you the summary of our meeting, the kickoff meeting we had with the team, the architect and the contractor in January 30th, I believe it was. we're going to have drawings far enough along that we can hand to the contractor in May of this year, so they can do what we call a preliminary guaranteed maximum price estimate. So that'll be a really good benchmark for us to say, are we on track for this project, meaning phase 1 and phase 2. We've given the contractor a target of $23 million to hit, but we know there's extra, there's other owner expenses, $27 million. Anyway, in May, we'll have a good idea if we're on target or not. And at that point in time, it's fair to say, well, if it's way over, stop the project. Or if it's way over, cut back on the scope. Or if we're on track, keep moving. That's where we're at right now.
So is it fair to say if we allowed the CCGB to keep designing, that getting a committee and asking the people what they want and making sure really would not affect anything at Mountain View? If it was going to be done by September, the committee
Well, that's
work.
not what the motion says, but yes, I mean, if we're allowed to keep moving, we can keep moving.
Okay, and, thank you.
Sure.
Now,
Any further discussion? Director Collins?
I'm in favor for this motion for one reason, because if it passes today, it's not going to happen today. But it will bring in the next meeting, I would like to see the other 20,000 people come to this meeting and tell us what they really want. Rather just 50 or 60 that are here, I want to see more people. It's not that I'm going to vote for it, but I want to see how many people actually care in this community. Or are they just going to say, we don't care, we're not going to go? And then this is the whole group that really cares. That's my reasoning.
Excuse me, please do not speak from the floor. There's been an opportunity for the members to speak today, and there'll be another opportunity for members to speak at the upcoming exchange.
Thank you, Ms.
Do we
Katz.
have other director discussion or Director Linevsky?
Just very briefly, I'm not going to reiterate everything I've said in the past, but I voted for this project in the past because I think it's in the best interest of Sun City, and I continue to think it is. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Director Nowakowski.
I have some mixed emotions on this. It's not, this is, it's a kicking can down the road. I just have a difficult time accepting that a group of people that is affected by it can turn around and come up to a conclusion that will say, I win, you lose, before the users. And when you look at the amount of people we have, we're looking at probably 15 users that are affected total. Now we're going to have a committee of 15 people making a determination on how to proceed. It is physically impossible for those 15 users to be somehow agreeable to what's going to happen to the facility. Can I support the motion as it is? Yeah. Do I see some problems with it? Yeah. What we're doing is probably, I would say, throwing a year into the project. That's reality. We have some people that are under contract to do some stuff. Now, they're not going to sit around and wait for us to make up our minds on what we're going to do. Those people that are committed are going to move. We're not dealing, unless we want to pay them to sit for the next 6 months and not do anything, their personnel is going to be reassigned somewhere else. So then you're going to have to come up with new personnel to do this. I've seen this happen several times in my career. So, how does that relate? We have one of the things that's happened in our society is everyone is an expert on every issue. You know, unfortunately, that's the case. Our legislature turns around and says, if we don't have a solution to the problem, we're going to throw it onto a referendum and let the people decide. And that's the kind of direction we're kind of heading. Well, we want the people to decide. Well, the only way you're really going to do that is by a pure vote of some kind. And what that's going to do is, my guess would be, we're going to end up 50-50 because that's how we're going everywhere else. And the board is still going to be sitting there without an answer, without moving forward. That's the reality. We may not like it, but that's what's going to happen. That's my opinion of how it's going to happen. So, well, you know, I like to be wrong. Please prove me that way. Thank you for being here.
Do we have any other director comments? Director Lair.
Thank you, Madam President, directors of the board. It's been said early on that there was no credible data used to determine the plan for Mountain View. Well, I got news for you. The Long Range Planning Committee spent one entire year planning and discussing the Mountain View project in 2019. We had 2 town hall meetings to get information from the community. In those town hall meetings, which were very well attended, the resort-style pool was brought up numerous times. I kept a check mark of how many times people came up and said they wanted a resort-style pool. And they wanted a theater. My God. When Long Range Planning was looking into this, I went to the theater. I went backstage. I checked the supposed changing rooms. These people are really operating at a huge disadvantage. State of the art for theater? Hell no. They needed a theater. Then we formed an ad hoc group, and we had people from all different positions coming in to discuss. Everything that was presented by the ad hoc group, with the exception of the rock climbing wall, was accepted. It was presented to the board, and at the May meeting where it was initially presented, the architect was there to go through it. At that time, in May of 2021, members came up and discussed the concerns regarding the handicap parking and how far it was from the entrances. I had serious concerns. Now, I will tell you, I was not in attendance at that meeting in May of 2021. I was in Wisconsin for a wedding, but I watched it online, and as soon as I watched it, and I had my book, so I had the plans, I called immediately and presented my concerns that, number one, safety and security and access control were not a primary function of the architectural design, and that was a huge mistake. The plan was amended. It was presented in June, and it was passed and approved by the board of directors. Then, 2021, a new board comes on, and they want a 90-day moratorium, 2022, excuse me. And so we had a 90-day moratorium. And again, lots of discussion, lots of people coming up, lots of complaints and issues brought forward. And now here we are in 2023. We have new board members, and here we go again. I'm appalled at the hubris of some of these new members who discard the time and the effort of not only the members, but the board members who sat here and spent hours on this project. Talk about analysis paralysis. Let's call a spade a spade. The biggest reason for the change from option 1 to option 2 was the necessity to address safety and security of the site. Long-range planning had spent a year studying safety and security and made a presentation, and the number one thing was access control. Crime is not going down, people. It's going up. And if you don't address architecturally safety and security and access control, you will spend far more long-term in operational expense, inconvenience, and possibly safety to our members. It needed to be addressed. Phase 1 and 2, someone mentioned Phase 2 wasn't approved. That's incorrect. Phase 1 and 2 were approved. Also, another false statement. Small group of members on the board changed their plan and the recommendations of the ad hoc planning committee. Not true. As I mentioned, the only thing that they didn't accept, and we checked, the board of directors went to multiple sites and looked at rock climbing walls. We checked in with our insurance carriers and found out it probably was not a good fit for our population. So there was research there as well. The new Mountain View pool will have a resort-style pool. It was mentioned that they wouldn't have a resort-style. That's not true. They will have a resort-style pool. It's in the drawings. It's been presented. They will have a real theater. They will have a sports pool. Right now, water volleyball doesn't have a dedicated space. They're working out of an area, and that's a fairly big club, and it's an active sport. We will have a multi-purpose gym, or if you prefer, a multi-purpose auditorium. We will have fitness center. Phase 3 contains pickleball, lawn bowling, and Mountain View. Now, there was a statement made in May, between May and June, or at the June meeting, that somehow pickleball was totally eliminated, permanently eliminated from the Mountain View plan. That's what the rumor was. That was false. Whoever told you that was lying. Pickleball was always, as is lawn bowling, as is mini golf, was always in the plan. Finally, long-range planning takes vision. The cost of replacing lawn bowling, the cost of replacing pickleball, yes, those are short-term expenses and inconvenience. But long-term, an architectural plan to effectively address controlled access will save dollars in operational costs, insurance, and provide a safe environment for our current members and future members. And shouldn't that be job one? I rest. I'm done.
Any other directors? Vice President McAdam.
So I'd like to be sympathetic to the fact that you've been sitting here for a long time and simply say that I'm going to try to keep my remarks brief, but I would be very, very happy to talk with anybody at length about what I'm going to sketch out very briefly. The process that has led to where we are right now, in my opinion, was very, very deeply flawed. The conversation that we're beginning to have now was something that a number of us on the board wished to have last year during the moratorium. We made 2 requests to have a special session to consider where we were on the Mountain View project and to look and at least to be able to present alternatives. And we were denied the opportunity to do that by the board leadership last year twice. As a result, here we are today, and we're in a position where we are able to have that conversation, and I think it's an important one that needs to be had. First of all, I want you all to really, really, really believe that we all, I believe I'm speaking for everybody, think that we need to have a performing arts center, a good performing arts center. We think that we can do better than to build one in the middle of an athletic facility on the south side of town. My vision for you is to have a performing arts center, a state-of-the-art facility at lakefront property at Lakeview, big windows overlooking the lake, a big patio where people can meet beforehand, where they can go out during intermission. I really think that you would be happier with a performing arts center there than in the middle of a sports facility. Secondly, this idea of a gym, and I mentioned to you that I actually care about the data supporting this. for the Mountain View Center, the idea that we have to take a building that currently exists with its 9,000 square feet or whatever it is, and then build twice the amount would have to be justified by some indication that Mountain View is oversubscribed. Mountain View is clearly not oversubscribed. So I have the data here. Not all of it is decipherable. So for instance, when I see that some clubs, let's say the softball club, used it for one event in March. So there are about 6 one-off events that are in here that I don't know exactly what happened. I presume that it was some kind of a banquet or a party that took place. But if you look at the complete usage for Mountain View for all of calendar year 2022, about 1.7% of that was used by clubs that may not be able to move whatever they did to the Performing Arts Center. That means that 98% plus of what Mountain View was used for is easily going to be housed in our new Performing Arts Center. I don't believe that there's a single other senior facility in the United States, a senior community in the United States that has an indoor gym. I actually checked the Villages in Florida, which is twice our size and has twice our rooftops and twice our population, does not have an indoor gym or a building that could be used as an indoor gymnasium. So I have asked management to provide us with some data about the multipurpose rooms that we have. Given that we have so many competing claims for resources and for property, I think it would be a shame to spend whatever it is that we have planned, $7, $8, $9 million, building our 15th multipurpose room here in Sun City when we have other things that are crying for attention, one of which, of course, is pickleball. What I envision for Mountain View is a facility that is strictly a sports facility, that keeps the current pickleball courts, that keeps the current lawn bowling, that puts in 3 pools, a resort pool, a sports pool, a 2-lane pool, and an outdoor spa, and instead of a gym, indoor pickleball courts. There is space to do that. Especially if we build the Performing Arts Center at Lakeview, we would have a beautiful sports facility. We would have a beautiful Performing Arts Center. We wouldn't have to be worrying about building 12-foot-high concrete block fences in order to contain the noise at Lakeview. Why would you do that at lakefront property? It just seems to me so much more logical, and I wish that I could have had this conversation with you last year. I was denied the opportunity to do that. I'd be happy to show you the drawings that I have, initial drawings, obviously amateur, but for what Mountain View could look like. And I think we can present to you some options for building a beautiful Performing Arts Center at Lakeview in the center of town on our most special property. I think we need to enhance that property and not degrade it by putting in a really loud and very highly used sport. So I'm happy to contact any of you and to share potential drawings that we have. I wish this conversation could have taken place last year. It would have saved us a lot of trouble and probably a lot of money.
Do we have any other director discussion? Then I would like to go ahead and just say one thing briefly. And there might be some misunderstanding, so I want to make sure there isn't. We have 2 centers remaining that have not been renovated, Mountain View and Lakeview. And we have basically at this moment $24 million available for construction. We've always thought about this and looked at this, and the meetings were held at Mountain View because the presumption was everything was about Mountain View. So we didn't really take perhaps all the time we should have to consider the financial fiduciary implications of all of that. As Vice President McAdams has just mentioned, Lakeview is a place that needs to be renovated as well as Mountain View. And I think that if the PAC did not have to compete, again, as was just mentioned, with a sports complex, that would benefit the PAC. But the money is tied to construction. I'm not sure everyone's clear on that. So for example, I think we've been clear here today that we need a performing arts center in this community. It's good for our members today, today's members. It's good from a competitive perspective to draw future members. But maybe we haven't made it clear that the Performing Arts Center is job one. That's where this money is going. It's going to the Performing Arts Center. And by following a plan that, for example, puts it at Lakeview, it allows the Performing Arts Center to be built, and simultaneously, because there's $24 million there, some things could be done at Mountain View. Mountain View is a very important place as well that needs to be renovated. But from a fiduciary perspective, we need to be careful that we're doing the right things for the right reason. We have a lawn bowl at Mountain View, again, as was mentioned today, that is there's no advantage to us financially to get rid of it. There's no financial benefit to us from destroying the pickleball courts at Mountain View. We can create Mountain View to be a sports complex, which it already is, and we can create a PAC at Lakeview, for example, at the same time. These are not either or. We certainly can't do everything that needs to be done at Mountain View with the current $24 million that we have, but we can get a PAC built. We can do that and still keep pickleball available at a time when pickleball's need is at its highest. This is what this recommendation, this motion is all about. It's about taking a few minutes to look at that type of perspective so that we do what's best for people today. We do what's best to keep our community sound in the future. This is not a kick anything down the road. This is take a moment to understand what the right thing is, to do the right thing for all of the members of our community. The date that was provided in this motion is an end date, not a start date. If this review can be done with immediacy, it can be done with immediacy and we can move on. This is not a delaying tactic. I just wanted to be clear about that there is money today that we can build a performing arts center and do other things as well. That's basically what I had to say. If there's no other, I'm sorry, Secretary Totten.
Thank you. I echo a lot of what you have stated, especially the fiduciary responsibility that this board has. We're not here to keep RCSC from spending money. We're here to ensure that the money that we have is spent wisely and for all members' benefit. We're a nonprofit whose existence is singular in nature, taken right from the articles to do anything and everything lawfully necessary in the interest of the members of the corporation. When those buying here and moving in took ownership, the concept of self-governance was included in that price. As Mr. Pearson mentioned, back in 1981, when a decision of importance had to be made, they went to the membership to get their opinion and the determination, and that was the Sun Bowl. It's not what we say we're going to do. It's our actions. We aren't control freaks. We agree with all of you that we need the Performance Arts Center. We have received information in the past that I question. Back in 2021, the board met in June to discuss the issue of the Mountain View, and the vote was postponed until May. In May, the board met again about the motion for the build, and again, the motion was postponed. These are the people that you have said wanted what you're asking for, but they postponed the motions twice. The motion passed in the second meeting in June. I'm sorry, 2021. There was discussion over a phase 3. Excuse me, my notes. Phase 3 was brought up in October, November, and November 18th, because at that time we had to have 3 readings of the motion. Sorry, just a second. That motion passed 8-1. I've never seen phase 3. And I don't understand how Director Lear can say that it was never stated anywhere that pickleball was not going to be disrupted, because you couldn't accomplish phase 2 without disrupting it. I've said a long time ago, I suggested using Lakeview and leasing, if necessary, a place to put staff while Lakeview is reconstructed. I've been told often that the PIF, it's placeholders. It can be changed. So when we see that we have 2 centers that need work, why can't we think outside the box and try to do the best for the amount of money for both? I would like to see all the membership know about this. It was mentioned today by one person that they just found out about this last night. Does that indicate to you that 30,000 people who live here know what's going on? It doesn't to me. And I feel that all of those people need a chance to be heard.
Director Collins.
Be brief. Phase 2 of Mountain View destroys the pickleball courts and the lawn bowling, and then they will be rebuilt later at Mountain View, but the cost is $10 million. So by taking just the pack out of there, you don't have to tear them down. We have an additional $10 million to do what we need to do. That's all.
All right, Secretary Totten, will you please take the roll call vote?
Director Lear?
No.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Lanevsky?
No.
Director Nolkowski?
First read, yes.
Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That's 7-4, 2 against.
The motion passes.
7
I'm sorry, 7-4, motion passes.
72.
7-2,
Oh,
7-2,
not for the
the motion passes. Okay? First reading.
first reading.
Okay, do we have any announcements?
Yes, I do.
Director Collins.
Yes. A couple of announcements. I wanted everybody here to know that on March 17th, up at 99th and Greenway, there's going to be a car show. Anyone can enter their vehicle. It's free. Anyone can go there and look at the cars for free. It's between the hours of 3 in the afternoon and 5:30, and I request that we can get something put up on our boards for that event, because to let our residents know up on our signage. Thank you.
No, okay. The next exchange meeting will be on March 13th at 9 a.m. here at Sundial. There being no further business and without objection, the meeting will be adjourned. Thank you for your time.
This is a copyrighted production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.